out how are vaccines approved? What is the safety protocol? How do the studies work? How efficient are they? And how stringent is the approval process? This is my favorite video. You all know what's coming. This is the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices at the CDC. In fact, for the last 2 days, they've been having a meeting. Many of the parents have been there giving brilliant speeches on the microphone. When we decided, actually I was sitting with Aaron Siri, our lawyer, just about 3 years ago, probably 2.5 years ago, we decided we have got to get to the belly of the beast. We've got to get to where this whole thing begins. We've got to go down to the CDC. They have to open up the doors at these ACIP meetings where they are taking vaccines and approving them and putting them on the schedule. So just over, I think, 2.5 years ago, I sat with Aaron Siri in the audience. We were the only ones there in a room full of pharma executives, and then, of course, the ACIP panel itself. And slowly but surely, the next time we went, there was more of us, and then more. Now hundreds of people are signing up. All that are allowed to will step up to a microphone and talk about the injury to their child or question ACIP. We have absolutely changed the dynamic of these ACIP meetings. And why did we need to change it? Well, I think that this next video shows you exactly why. We have a serious problem with how vaccines are being approved. This is a brand new hepatitis B vaccine called Hepislav. It was approved last year. Take a look at this video from the ACIP meetings.
Is there any comment on using this vaccine at the same time with other adjuvanted vaccines?
We have no data to make a recommendation one way or the other.
So just to sort of put this in context of other vaccines, whilst preclinical studies were not done using these vaccines simultaneously, our general approach to immunizations is that they can be given at the same time in different limbs.
Dr. Hunter?
Are multiple adjuvanted vaccines used in Europe or other markets?
Dr. Ward, do you want to comment?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I think unless there's any further discussion, we will take a vote on this recommendation.
I want to remind everyone to please check your voting machine thing. And I don't know what it is. Voting is open.
Thank you very much. So the voting is completed, and it is unanimous to support this recommendation. Thank you all.
Okay, very quickly. There's a discussion about a vaccine for hepatitis B. This vaccine has a brand new adjuvant. For those out there watching for the first time, no one that I know of in the vaccine risk awareness movement is complaining about the amount of antigens or like the bacteria or viruses, because as is pointed out by the CDC and Sanjay Gupta all the time, our kids are digging through millions and billions of antigens every day when they play in the dirt. That's never been our problem, though they try to make that the straw man argument, say there's less antigens than there ever were before in vaccines. We've made them safer. We weren't complaining about the antigens, we were complaining about the adjuvants, the toxic poison that's in the vaccine that is designed to send my body and my child's body into a hyper-allergic reaction, a hyperimmune reaction. Why do we do that? Because when we had viruses and bacteria, naturally it comes through our eyes, our nose, our mouth, and goes into our lungs, our mucosal areas. This is where the alarm system is built for your body to know I am under attack by a bacteria or a virus, and that's when we have two responses, an immune cellular response and then the antibody response. That's what happens naturally. Vaccines up until this point have only really been able to create antibodies, the second part of the immune response. That's why we get 5 DTaP vaccines. That's why there's apparently right now 4 MMRs through life. They're talking about adding a third one in college, which will make it 5 MMRs, because these vaccines, though they promised to give you lifelong immunity, never did. They only created antibodies, which wears off. Everyone knows it. And so, we have a failed product. Well, they wanted to figure out how to get to the real immune system, the way a real person and a real virus works. Well, back in 2011, they discovered the innate immune system, and what triggers it was something called toll-like receptors. The Nobel Prize was given out in 2011 to the scientists that discovered toll-like receptors. I don't need to get deep in the science. Just think, 2011, 8 years before this meeting, we discovered something brand new about the immune system, and this was going to be the first vaccine to attempt to trigger, to hyperstimulate your innate immune system with these toll-like receptors, okay? We are now spelunking into a place in the body we have never been before. So you would think we did some extra thorough scientific studies on this, right? So when a top scientist asks, did we, with this brand new adjuvant that's going to spelunk into the immune system in a place we've never been before, did we test it along with someone getting another adjuvant to vaccines like a neurotoxin like aluminum that's used oftentimes in vaccines? Did we give them at the same time? The woman, the head that has been investigating, no, we have no data on that. No one thought to do that study. Good idea, but none of us thought of it, so too late. Okay. Great question, terrible answer. But then we hear from the person running the meeting, just so you all know, if some of you are new members at ACIP, if you vote yes today, that vaccine that was never tested with another adjuvanted vaccine will knowingly be given with other adjuvanted vaccines. But don't worry, we give it in different limbs. As though the immune system has this giant barrier of, you know, what do we have, 2 feet of chest here, so don't worry about it. What could possibly go wrong? You know, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So then the next question, anywhere else in the world are they giving multiple adjuvanted vaccines at the same time? Not to my knowledge. Another great question, terrible answer. Let's vote. 100% yes. That's chilling. That's scary. Great questions, terrible answers. And you have to ask yourself, why even ask the question? I mean, why do these doctors and scientists even ask a question if they get the worst possible answer and it doesn't keep them from voting 100% yes? I don't know. It's a quandary. But even more of a quandary is the conversation that happens after all of these people that are supposed to be looking out for our health. Listen to the conversation they have after they voted 100% yes.
Does anybody have any comments they wish to make about their vote?
So just a slight reservation. I think this is a huge advance and a step forward. I am concerned about that signal, that myocardial infarction signal. I am concerned about the use of this new adjuvant and certainly urge us to continue to look at the post-marketing data carefully.
Dr. Hunter?
Just a question about that. How soon would we be getting that post-marketing data update here?
There's 2 kinds of data. The vaccine safety data link data will require people to be using the vaccine to develop substantive database. And Dr. Sun, do you want to comment on the post-marketing data that FDA is requiring?
I think for the myocardial infarction study, we're seeing that the date for or likely for completion is May 31, 2020. There will also be studies looking at autoimmune diseases as well as herpes zoster, and there will be a pregnancy registry as well. So that's all included in the post-marketing surveillance.
Thank you.
Again, I was sitting in the audience when this happened. My mind was blown. I just heard a doctor that voted yes on this new vaccine say, though I think this is a great step forward for mankind, like we're stepping out on the moon, great advancement, I am concerned with that myocardial infarction signal. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's a heart attack. He's concerned about the heart attack signal. And I said, what does he mean, heart attacks? I ran out of the room. There's some computers available to people that are visiting the ACIP meetings. And I punched in Dynavax's Hepislav B, and this is the first headline that came up. FDA rejects Dynavax's hepatitis B vaccine shares sync. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how are we at the CDC? By the way, the FDA votes on a product first. The manufacturer says we've got a great new vaccine. Here's our safety trials. We did it ourselves. All of our own scientists trust us on all the data. It was really great. You should move forward with this vaccine. Now remember, safety studies are not done by the FDA. They're not done by the CDC. They're done by the manufacturers, by the people that stand to make billions of dollars from the product. So that should make you nervous right there. Well, they came forward, and the problem they had, it got turned down at the FDA. In fact, it got turned down the first time, it came back a second time, and it got turned down a second time. Now, what's happening? Are they going back and making a new vaccine? No, they're not. Are they doing a new trial? No way. They're not spending the millions of dollars on it. Instead, they just go back to the drawing board and sit with a think tank and figure out, how do we explain away this? This is an article I found written by the only heart surgeon voting on the FDA VRBPAC committee. His headline says, "Does a new hepatitis vaccine cause heart attacks?" Look at what it goes on to say. In the trial, an acute myocardial infarction occurred in 14 people in the Dynavax group. 14 people had acute heart attacks, which leads one to believe, I would guess, somebody died. I don't know if all or how many, but acute means really freaking serious heart attack. And this article goes on to say, written by the only cardiologist in the room, remember, it failed the first time in FDA, failed the second time, came back a third time, and this guy writes, I'm sorry, I'm the only one that understands heart attacks really, and 14 heart attacks in your trial group of perfectly healthy people. By the way, you picked the healthiest people you could find to make your product look as good as you could make it in the trials, and 14 of them had acute heart attacks. And so what does he say at the end? So when it came time to vote, I abstained. You abstained? You're the only person that understands the severity of a heart attack and why you think this could be a very dangerous vaccine, and you don't vote no? You let this move forward, you just say, I'm not going to vote? Will you please grow a pair for the safety of humanity? Now, here's what's really troubling. Now we watch the ACIP members all saying, but we're going to have a post-marketing surveillance system. So they've all decided, by the way, to make you a test subject in a vaccine trial you did not know you were a part of. A vaccine trial where they're expecting definitely some people will probably have heart attacks. We're even going to have a pregnancy registry. I wonder if pregnant women die when they get this hepatitis B vaccine. Or you wonder what might happen to the fetus? Well, we're going to figure that all out with this registry in our post-marketing surveillance. But see, there's an even bigger problem. How does a post-marketing surveillance system work? Well, obviously, your front line of post-marketing is the doctor themselves. The doctors are going to have to report back to the CDC, you know what, after I gave this Hepatitis B vaccine, 5 of my patients had heart attacks, right? That's how it would work. But here's the problem. Nowhere in the literature that the doctors are receiving is there any statement about heart attacks. I read it. No, in fact, this is what the doctor is told when they either go to the website or handed the brochure for the new hepatitis B vaccine. It says, and they celebrate when it comes to the CDC recommendation, ACIP has unanimously recommended Hepatitis B for protecting against hepatitis B. And guess what? The last hepatitis B vaccine, you needed 3 shots. The new one, this one, only 2 shots. So it's way better, and it was approved by 100% of the members. Your doctor has no idea that in the trials there were heart attacks. Your doctor has no idea that the CDC is going to depend on your doctor to let them know there were heart attacks. But here's the problem. Like every other vaccine injury taking place in the world today, your doctor is told there's no such thing as a vaccine injury. So when a heart attack happens in one of their patients, they're going to say, well, that was just coincidence, because the vaccine was approved by both the FDA and ACIP, and by the way, it was unanimously recommended, so that means it's safe. And that means I, as a doctor, am not going to report your heart attack to VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, or the CDC. So you tell me how this surveillance system that they're all sitting around a table waiting for is supposed to work if there is no warning. By the way, those doctors using it, there's a slight chance of heart attacks. Keep your eyes out and let us know if you see anything. See, that would be good science, but that's not happening. So what do we learn now? Lesson 4.